Well, it's time to review my favorite anime of all time.
I see it, and now it's all within my reach. Possibility. I see it now. It's always been inside of me. And now I feel so free. And there's possibility. And there's possibility. And there's possibility. And there's possibility.
Hello everyone, and today we're taking a look at Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, my favorite anime. Now, what's the plot of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? Well, to give off a brief description, I won't talk about the stuff that happens at the beginning since I already talked about that in my 03 review. But for the first 11 episodes, Brotherhood's story and 03's story are basically the same, with some differences. But until we get to episode 12, when we introduce Tatsumi Curtis, that's when it starts to split, and FMA does the adaptation of the manga closer than 03 did. And we introduce characters such as Olivia A. Armstrong, Alex Louise Armstrong's sister, also other characters like Ling Yao, Mei Chang, and other characters that are all fun to watch as the brothers find out about a plot by Father, the creator of the homunculi, who wants to basically use every person on the planet as a sacrifice so he can attain the power of God. And the brothers, along with the people of Mestris, try to find a way to stop him. Well, Ed and Alphonse know about the plan that Father is making, but they're not allowed to tell, or else they'll get, that. So, what do I think about this anime? It's my favorite anime of all time, and I absolutely adore Brotherhood. Heck, I'll say this right now. This is my second favorite show of all time, behind Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I'll fully admit, before we get into the good stuff I love about the show, there is one problem I have with Brotherhood, and that's the first season, the first 13 episodes. They're not bad. It's just that it more feels like recap for viewers like me who have seen 03, and that's perfectly fine. But for newcomers who decide to watch this instead of 03, because this one's more of a faithful adaptation to the manga, some scenes aren't going to impact as well. Like, for example, stuff like Trisha Elric. In 03, they spent an entire episode with Trisha Elric during the time of her death. Here, 4 minutes, and then she dies. Yeah. And that's kind of disappointing. I get that what they want to do, since between the time gap of 03's ending and this show's creation, I get what they want to do, but still, for new viewers, yeah. But other than that, this show is fantastic. Let's start off with the animation. It's perfection, especially during the action scenes. These action sequences are outstanding. Some of my favorites are Wrath vs. Scar, Kimberly and Pride versus Alphonse, and Greed / Ling Yao, and the Brigadier General versus Wrath. All those three fights, and especially the big battle at the end, is just fantastic to see. This is some of the best animation I've ever seen in any TV show or movie ever. And the voice cast is fantastic as always. They have a lot of the old voice cast actors reprising their roles, with one notable exception. That being, you see, in 03, there was the boy who played Alphonse was 13 years old, which worked since Alphonse at that time in the show was around the age of 13. But over time, his voice got deeper and deeper during the years between the shows, and because of that, they decided to replace him with a woman who I swear, when I first watched this series, I thought they got the original actor from 03 to play Alphonse. I'm not even joking. Look at these two clips back to back. They sound nearly identical.
My brother may not look it, but he's a state alchemist. And a tough one. I've got your soul, brother!
Seriously, props to Alphonse's voice actress in this show. She does a good job of imitating the voice actor in 03. Now, speaking of the characters, let's talk about them. Even though I talked about some of them in my 03 review, I love what they did with the characters in this show. With Ed and Alphonse, even though I like their brotherly dynamic in 03, I especially love what they did here. Especially at the end of this series, where during the final battle, both brothers, make major sacrifices for one another in order to stop the main villain. and their sacrifices are so powerful. Alphonse sacrifices the suit of armor he's in, basically his soul, and is waiting on the side of the gate, waiting for Ed to come back, so that way Ed can get his arm back in order to perform alchemy to defeat the villain, while Edward gives up alchemy itself just to save his brother's soul. That is powerful, and they are just so good. They are the best siblings I have ever seen in any TV show I've ever watched, or any movie for that matter, or in anything related to fiction. They're the greatest siblings in fiction, in my opinion. And I also love what they did with Roy Mustang here. How his goals to become Fuhrer are more explained as how he wants to atone for his friends, and especially near the end of the series where we see the fire in Roy Mustang growing. Two notable things for this are with his battles between two of the homunculi, lust and envy. You really see the rage he has when he fights both of them, especially for Envy when he finds out that Envy was the person who killed Maze Hughes. And let's just say, Roy goes to town on Envy. He doesn't even give Envy a chance to stand up, and he's just like incinerating him right and left, making sure he cannot move, wanting his revenge. And as someone who watched 03, and even though they didn't do that in 03, I was just waiting for this moment where Roy gets his revenge on the person who killed his best friend. But they point out that revenge is never the answer, and how hatred and revenge just lead into a never-ending cycle of murder. And that is extremely powerful, especially with the character of Scar, who they do a better job here with that mentality. Mainly with his fight with Kimberly, and of course Wrath. I loved how during the fight between him and Wrath points out how Scar is a part of the Ishvalan people who believe in God and believe that God is the creator of all things. And he talks about how, hey, why are you using alchemy if you believe in God, the person you believe to be the creator of all things? And at the end of the fight, he says, you started to believe that there was no God in this world at all, and then the solar eclipse stops, giving Scar the time he needs to finish Bradley, showing that God does exist. And hey, I find it funny how even Wrath points that out, saying how he's all like, so this is what they call divine justice, huh? Another character that they do a better job here is with the character of Kimberly. Kimberly was just a psychopath in 03, but here they do a great job of showing how good he is at pointing out the hypocrisies in people's ideologies, especially during the time of the Ishvalan Civil War, where during a flashback, Roy and Reese talk about how they're supposed to be keepers of the peace, not soldiers murdering people. But Kimberly tells them, hey, you guys are soldiers. You know you were coming to a battlefield. Did you expect not to kill anyone on a field of battle? And I especially love that point. And even at the end, near the end of the series, where Pride is about to jump into Ed's body, that doesn't sound weird at all, trust me, it works better in context. And even though he's Pride, he's supposed to take pride in the fact he's a homunculus, but he's jumping into a body of a lower life form, as he calls it. And Kimberly points it out, saying how it's hypocritical for a homunculus to do such a thing, and because of that, Edward defeats Pride. And another thing I love about the characters is with Hohenheim. Now, I love what they did with Hohenheim in 03, but they did a much better job of showing his pain and turmoil, having an eternal body, how he thinks that this is a curse, how he thinks that Ed and Alphonse could have an eternal body, having the same fate as he, watching his friends growing old and dying. It's very sad. Now, there is one small gripe I have with Hohenheim, and that's at the end of the series when he dies. Now, I'm fine with Hohenheim dying. In fact, they do a much better job with Hohenheim's death here than they did in Conqueror Shambhala. But I have one problem. I wish Ed and Alphonse were with Hohenheim during his last few moments. Because, while yes, Edward did technically forgive him for leaving him at a young age when he called him father, I felt like it would have driven that point a lot more better if Ed and Alphonse were with him during his last few moments. Sort of like how they were with Trisha. And I think they would have done a little bit better job. Other than that, I was completely fine with Hohenheim and his death scene. another character they introduced here that wasn't in 03 was Ling Yao and how he becomes the new Greed. And Troy Baker does a spot-on performance as Greed. He is just perfect. And Ling Yao is such an interesting character, how he wants to be king of the Prince of Shing. No, he's the Prince of Shing, but he wants to be ruler. Basically, Shing is the FMA equivalent of China or Japan. And how he says, like, king should serve his people, not just himself. And how that clashes with Bradley being all like, a king should only serve himself, not people. And I especially love it how near the end of the series, during their fight, Fu, one of his servants, says, hey, you're a king. You should expect sacrifices along the way. And he just gets enraged when Bradley kills Fu. And he just, like, slashes him right in his eye. It's freaking brutal, but awesome. And then there's the ending of this show. Now, this isn't a gripe, but I just wish they did a lot more with the ending. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the ending of Brotherhood. It's one of my favorite endings in any show ever. But they do sort of a thing where they do like a PowerPoint presentation at the end where they show pictures of where the characters are in their lives after the events, and that's all fine and good. I especially like how how Roy is now the fear of a mistress, and Ed and Winry are actually married and have kids. And I love how the family photo, the new Elric family photo, is sort of like the family photo Trisha and Hohenheim took with Ed and Al, but it's different. Winry and Ed's kids are in the same positions that Ed and Alphonse were, but you see the difference. Ed is smiling, unlike Hohenheim was, and it's kind of a sweet moment. And I especially love how they actually got married. I love Edward's proposal and how Winry's all like, does everything have to be about alchemy? And she points out how stupid it is, and it's kind of funny. But man, that ending was pretty good. I just wish there was more to it. It just left me wanting more. But if it left me wanting more, then I think that's a good sign because of how well this show does. It is able to do emotions, make me feel for the characters, get me excited, make me laugh, make me cry. It's just an emotional roller coaster of a show. If it weren't for Avatar: Last Airbender existing, this would be my favorite show of all time. It is near perfection. I love almost everything about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. It has great characters, a great story, engaging themes and messages, and fantastic animation, music, and battles. And the opening themes in this show are all fantastic. They all do a fantastic job of foreshadowing future events in the series, and they are all just beautiful to watch. And I even love how in this show, the homunculized death scenes have some sort of irony to it. Envy dies jealous of humans, Gluttony gets eaten, Lust gets killed by a man, and Pride dies, Pride doesn't technically die, he is reborn as New Salim, aka Nipplehead. Seriously, he has a nipple on his head, just saying. And yeah, this show is just fantastic, and I would highly recommend you watch it. I'm giving Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood a 10 out of 10. It is near perfection. That being said, guys, join me next time as we take a look at a movie that takes place in the FMA timeline that is not very good. So yeah, join me next time as we take a look at FMA, The Sacred Star of Milos. I hope you all enjoyed, and FMA Brotherhood gets a 10 out of 10. See you all later, and bye.